Hello, Daisy.
Hello, Sheila.
How are you?
I'm well. About yourself?
I'm doing okay. It's Wednesday, right?
It is. I forget what day it is. Who are you?
I know. Who am I? What day is this? I don't know. What year is this? Okay, I think Mercury's not in retrograde. So right now we are live on LinkedIn, but let's see what happens at the 7-minute mark and see if we get kicked out again.
Okay, sounds good. But we are having some technical difficulties. That's just.
Oh, I can't even. I'm not. I don't know what to do. I don't know. You might hear some echoing today. Just
Yeah.
double the joy of what we all say, which
You
is,
might see the Juicy Fruit commercial. I don't know if that was.
huh?
It was a Juicy Fruit commercial. Double the pleasure, double the fun. It was the twin.
Double mint.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway.
Okay. I love that. All right. Well, just as a reminder, if anything does happen again with the streaming on LinkedIn, we are on YouTube. So you can go to our YouTube channels and find us there. But it was just really funny last week that, everything kind of fell off the rails. But we're live, so we'll go with it. We'll see what happens. This is the joy of being live all the time. Oh my gosh. Okay, let's get started because I am excited about today. Welcome everyone to the Glass House, where we look at business from the inside and the outside to expose the gap between what's embedded and what's embodied. I am Shara Halixer. I am the founder and chief momentum officer of Engage 3P.
Hi, I'm Daisy Watkins, founder of DW Concepts and LumaPath.ai. And I always have to say this, if you're in business today, if AI doesn't see it today, you don't exist.
We say this every week. If you are here, thank you. Thank you for joining us. You have so many options. I mean, heck, you could just sit and watch TikTok and Instagram. So, which I do. So we really appreciate the fact that you're here, whether it's live, whether you're watching us on any of the multiple places that we exist on our websites, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, or on Apple Podcasts. You can listen on the go. If you do go to Apple Podcasts, even if you don't go to Apple Podcasts, if you have access to Apple Podcasts, do me a favor, rate and review us. Give us a 5-star. We're trying to get it out there, and it would really be appreciated to get our message out more and more and more. We also want to try to make this as conversational as possible. We're limited, obviously, to the restrictions on the way this format is, but drop us a note. Let us know what you're thinking. Share with us that you're here, that you are listening, and whatever questions or comments you have or reactions, we like to incorporate those into the show as well, so we can make this as conversational as possible and not just a broadcast. So that would be really wonderful. Okay, here is a sentence that sounds like really good advice. Build the infrastructure before growth breaks the business. Most founders hear that and picture the same handful of things: the HR systems, the other tech system, the org chart, the compensation band, the handbook nobody probably opens, and that first real manager, and ultimately that executive structure. All the C-suites are in place, and they build all of it. And then the business cracks anyway. Real infrastructure is in the culture. It's in the communication. It's in the roles and the expectations that people actually live by. It's in the guardrails that lets a person move without always having to ask permission first. Growth does not create dysfunction. Growth reveals it.
Well, hang on, my teleprompter. I'm sorry, I cannot lie. I have to.
You just did the full exposure. Can we edit?
Sorry. Okay. And here's what's happening on the outside while all of this is happening in the inside. At 12 people, incoherence stays private. Everyone sits close enough to absorb what is meant rather than what is written down. And at 60, it goes public. The careers page promises one culture, the reviews describe the other, and the founder posts a third version entirely. All reads 3 at once. it does not weigh the polished version more heavily because more money went into it. It finds the seam and it answers from there. So by the time the company notices its own gap internally, the market has been reading the gap externally for months. So be very, very careful in what you post, basically.
Yeah, it's true. And I this is what I say all the time. This is the embedded versus embodied problem, right? The org chart is embedded. Whether anyone decides anything without walking into the founder's office is embodied, right? So there's a way to look at that and understand what's going on. The values are embedded. Whether a manager holds to them on the worst day of the quarter, that's what embodiment looks like. You know, we are in episode 26 and I can't believe it. And every episode this season landed somewhere inside that gap. Today we're naming out loud because this is the second to the last episode of our first season. It's exciting.
Very exciting. And the gap does not stay inside the building. The moment the company grows, the outside starts reading it. In the careers page, the reviews, what AI says when someone asks what you are really like, growth is what makes the gap public. Okay. So today, drop in your comments the last time your company grew and something's quietly broken, became impossible to ignore. We are reading them live and pulling them in as we go.
Yeah, we definitely want to hear from everyone. So our guest today walks into the version of this that never makes the headlines. Anna Welland is a fractional HR and people operations leader with more than 15 years building the systems founders reach for once the pain has already arrived. Startup HR infrastructure, compensation frameworks, performance management, onboarding, organizational design. She works with founders and small leadership teams who are scaling faster than their structure exists. Which means she does not theorize about the distance between what a company installed and what it lives. She arrives after that crack has already shown up, and she has to build inside a company that is already on fire. So she knows this firsthand. Anna Welland, welcome to the Glass House.
Thank you so much.
And welcome. Thank you for coming. So this is a big topic, right? You're walking in, the cracks are showing, people are freaking out. And I'm going to just start this out fresh. What is one of the first things that you notice that maybe a founder hasn't? What's that first indication when you walk in the room?
Well, I notice almost immediately the inconsistencies. So I go through a discovery period. I start discussing, having discussions with key stakeholders, look at, maybe a Google Drive, start looking at the systems and start putting kind of a picture together that I'm able to put together without input from others. And then I ask the same questions of everyone to see, where they think the organization is currently, where is it headed? And it's amazing how often it's very different from the vision of the founder. The founder thinks everyone is equipped with the right resources, everyone is clear on the message, everyone is clear on what success looks like. Meanwhile, none of that is actually the case.
Oh, wow. None of it?
None of it.
Wow. And this is in what size of a company? Where are you seeing this? Does it matter the size, how old the company is? Does any of that play into it?
Absolutely. I think, when you're 5, 10, 15 people, it's not going to be as obvious because you still have, a lot of visibility. You have access to the founder. You're going to be communicating continually. Once you get a little bit larger, it compounds, right? And it shows up in different ways. And so if you're kind of building, chaos on top of chaos, your end result will be more chaos. So it's really kind of important to lay the groundwork for kind of a people operating system.
Yeah. I'm a very visual thinker. And so I love analogies, and I'm always painting pictures when I talk. And one of the things that comes to mind for me is nobody, goes out and says, I'm going to put my house here, or I'm going to put my building here and start building on ground without doing a survey, right? Without really understanding, is there a sinkhole here? Can the land take what I'm going to put on it? Just we talk about building the foundation first. I think there's something even before that, which is, do we have the stability to build on top of what's here? That's even before you start laying foundation and pouring that to build whatever we're building.
Absolutely. I mean, you got to look internally in terms
Yeah.
of what are the resources, the people, the systems you have, where are the gaps, right? Where do you need to fill? And oftentimes, that it's not done very thoughtfully. It's done very reactively. It's done very quickly. And it's done in a silo. It's never kind of looked at more from an enterprise level or understanding the downstream impacts across the organization from a single communication or decision.
Amazing. Daisy, were you going to say something?
Just from working with founders in the middle of scaling, like you said, right? So what does it look like for them in the outside? I'm coming from my point of view, right, for what I do. What does it look like for them on the outside of exactly when they start experiencing these changes in growth?
When does the founder kind of feel the pain, start feeling the pain? I think it's when, they're kind of the point of contact for everything, right? Everyone is coming to them because they haven't done a good job clearly defining the roles, the teams, what success looks like, what are the deliverables. And so people are also not empowered to make decisions, to move actions forward. And so it's a lot of the founder becomes the bottleneck because everyone's coming at them at 1,000,000 miles an hour. And they're now focusing on other things, right? They might be fundraising. They might be not spending as much time inside the organization. And so it might take them now 2 or 3 days to respond to an email, a Slack message, where before it was simply maybe they were in the office and, you can knock on their door. And so they're feeling like, oh my God, I have so much on my plate. And in reality, it's actually you never set up the infrastructure and clearly defined it for your people so that they could then take all of these activities and turn them into decisions and progress. You may have delegated, but you didn't actually, provide kind of the guardrails or guidance around, at what level do I escalate? At what level, do I make the decision on my own?
So you said the two words that get me going all the time. Okay. Guardrails and empowerment, right? These are the two things that I may have said this to both of you. I may have said this on our show. I say it all the time because it really is so important to me. There is not a team that I have ever led in my entire professional career that I don't ensure that the guardrails are there to protect the people on my team, the people in the organization itself, myself included, right? Like those guardrails need to be there. And if they are there and they're really good, it's done well, then I always want to empower the people that are working for me to be able to make any decision they need to make, right? It's about the right kind of training. It's about ensuring that they understand what their role is, as you said, what their expectations are, what their responsibilities are. And then it's letting them run free within those guardrails that are set up so they can't hurt the business. And I always say to people when they join my teams, there are only 2 times when you must come to me. Understand, I am always here for you. There is never a time you can't come to me. That open door, it doesn't matter. I don't care. But but I want you to make decisions based on the role you've been given and now that you've been trained. There are 2 times where you must come to me. It is non-negotiable. And those 2 times are death and fire. Because death and fire are the only 2 things I can't fix. right? And so if they know that they have, I hope that they know that if they have the ability to make decisions, that they can't bankrupt the business, that they, and we're assuming, of course, they're not going to go steal money and do whatever, but you're going to go make decisions about whatever your role is. Those guardrails are in place. You're not going to break anything. Go, learn, do, because then they're going to learn for the next time. So it may not be the best result, but the hope is that the right person is then going to learn from it and make the decision better the next time. But death and fire are my non-negotiables. Like, you must come to me. And I think that I have found that to be very empowering with the people that have worked for me, because they have that ability to say, let me stretch a little bit. Let me go out and do what I need to do. Because the worst thing in the whole world is, you call a customer service and they're like, there's nothing I can do. I can't help you. I'm like, yeah, you can. You really could. You just won't. That makes me insane.
Well, let me add to that though. Aside from you just telling them that, don't come for me for those two things, similar approach, but I didn't take that or fire. I could use that now if I can borrow it. But anyway, the point is, it stems from you being a leader too. You have set those guardrails in the beginning from a conversation and expectations of the role of the job, whatever it is that, you have laid out. And then I'm pretty sure that because you have, I allow my teams to that work for me. Like you are your own business, right? Most of them the last one was for recruiters, right? You are your own business. This is your desk. So if there's something you need to give it need to be approved for compliance or whatever that is, then who's the next layer before me to get that response from as well. And so it stems from your communication, number one, of being a great leader. Again, it comes from what Anna's saying. The leader is always where it starts, right? Whether it's delegating it or internally processing or going through the motions of it. So all I say is communication is part of that, and making sure that those are clear. Pass it down to your employees. Thanks, Shira. So Anna,
you're also consistently communicating the same message, right? It's not, oh, I tell Tom this and then Bob that, right? Because that just makes sense in the moment, right? Then that also creates confusion, because now Bob and Tom are going to talk and they're going to be like, wait, no, he said this or she said this. And it's like, wait, that doesn't reconcile, right? I think, listening to the two of you, I was like, bing, 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 all these things were going off in terms of like, they're often with these small organizations, no job description, right? They will hire based on their network. A lot of CEOs will go to an event, they'll meet someone will push a resume or a LinkedIn profile. The next thing you know, they come back and they tell the hiring manager, oh, can you get this person squeezed in? And different rules apply. We're also in a space where, everyone gets ahead of something title, right? Whether they have 20 years of experience behind them or 2. And so that head of engineering, that head of biology, right? Based on their lived experience, the industries they've worked in, right? Like all of those racked up years is going to help inform them, right? Like at what point do I escalate? At what point do I make the decision? When you're ahead of a department and you've never managed anyone, but you now have inherited this title and possibly, a team, and you yourself are like very new to the workforce, and there's no guardrails, right? And everything is just like, where do I go, right? That I'm starting to see, because there are now 5 generations in the workplace. Everyone's coming to the table with different assumptions, different understandings, and you really need to level set, because what one generation might think is common sense, or this is how best practice, another is like, I never heard of this, or, what are you talking about kind of thing, because I've never experienced it.
I've seen, and I joined a tech startup and lost my t-shirt, right? And the thing that I find with startups, I like to say, you know, startups tend to be a lot of this, you know, it's hands and feet flailing for exactly the reason you said. Everybody's chipping in, everybody's doing something. I have a client right now that has 2 different startups. And if I could share, I can't, but if I could share the last 2 days of the insanity of the conversations that I've been, you know, I had a conversation with someone who was helping the founder as a favor, and he went off the rails. I mean, we have a project that we have to get done in the next 15 days for an investor meeting. And he went off. I can't even, it was like talking about, I don't even know what. They have a device, and he said, let's make it out of glass. And I said, oh my, what? We don't even have, I'm cracking up because that's exactly what it is, right? It's this, everybody's off to kind of running, and that is typical in that startup world. We've got really great creative people. I have found too that founders, it's their baby, right? It's emotional. There's, you know, a lot, it's not IBM, right? It's not some huge, it's a different mentality when it comes to founder run businesses. And to be fair, having been one, I don't know that all founders are the best leaders for organizations, right? So what is that moment have you seen when a founder goes, oh yeah, okay, before it completely goes belly up? What are those signals that you see from them that they start to recognize that they need the help and they can get something going?
Yeah, I mean, it's often a difficult conversation, and it needs to be stated a number of times. You need to almost like, you know, not embody that that communication or that message, right? Because then you're seen as, oh, Anna's just being really tough, right? Like she wants a lot of different FSOPs and she wants all this crazy infrastructure and bureaucracy, and all I need is to like just operate over the next 12 months. I think when you start kind of connecting the dots, you know, if people are frustrated or multiple people are coming to the founder asking the same questions over and over again. I've sat in leadership team meetings where every single Monday for 4 weeks, we were talking about the same thing. And finally, the CEO was just like, why are we talking about the same thing we talked about 4 weeks ago? Like, why hasn't any decision been made? And he like lost his top. And then 10 minutes later, he's like, I'm sorry. You know? And so he and I had a discussion afterwards, and I said, yeah, you can't do that. Like, you can't like just lose it. But you also can't bottle, you know, if you're frustrated or you're realizing that this has been going on for 2 weeks. Like at week 2, you should have been like, hey, what's happening? Why are we having circular conversations?
Right.
You know, that happens a lot, but it takes a really long time for it to really sink in for the founder, because as you said, it's their baby, but they become so far removed from it, from like the day to day, as the company grows, because they're looking for, you know, whether it's an exit strategy, whether it's fundraising, they're so embedded in that process that they still consider it their baby and they think it's in good hands, but it isn't.
Wow. Okay. Daisy, you're on mute, my friend.
Can I unmute myself? Am I still muted?
No, you're not. You're not muted.
Okay, but you said I was muted?
You were when you started.
Oh, okay, I don't know. I lost my train of thought.
Oh my gosh. You had a question for Anna, I can tell.
Yes, no, you were talking about, it depends on the situation, right? Like you said, as a founder, and it was the emotional part of it becomes, it's there whether you realize it or not. You're tied into it. It's a matter of when you let go and when you don't let go, to your point, Anna, right? It's like, are you ready to let go of and delegating it versus still trying to own it. And really, for a lot of founders too, it's what keeps them up at night kind of situation, that sometimes they get in that mindset before understanding what's cooking in the office today and what's happening. It's all their own agenda before reading the room. So that's part of it. It's a lot of leadership is what I'm just trying to say. So aside from going off on certain things, Anna, what have you seen good leaders do when they get into this space? I mean, I think those are things that our audience might want to learn from, right? So
Yeah.
I think almost immediately you see at the organization there's lots of communication, right? Whether it's happening in and consistent communication. So
Mhm.
there's now regular scheduled town halls, there are, you know, regular email communications, there's celebrations of wins or progress, not simply just, you know, let's move on to another thing. So they realize, right, like I need to keep up morale. And by having those touch points with employees, either as a group, as a team, or individually, you know, I've been in organizations where they'll do a monthly coffee chat and they'll invite, you know, 5, 6 members of the company each month, and you can ask the CEO anything. And so that becomes, you know, even if you're not very hierarchical organization, that really breaks down some of the silos, some of the walls, some of those barriers. People start feeling a little bit more engaged, like, oh, I'm part of this company. I'm not just, you know, like just in this cube or in this office, and the CEO's out of touch. So I think a lot of more of those communications, those touch points, getting people visibility now as the company is growing, right? For them to present, hey, what does this team really do, right? Because maybe a G&A function has no clue on what the biology team or the chemistry team is doing, right? And so they can present their information. So it's really kind of figuring out, you know, how do we build that culture? How do we communicate? And, you know, building that that safety, right? Because now people are starting to feel like, oh, this is a company that cares about me. If I have questions, I can escalate them, I can ask them. I won't be the only one in the room. I won't be kind of put on a list because I asked a certain question. I mean, all of it is with, you know, professionalism and respect, right? Like you don't want to call out a leader in a town hall, which I have also seen. But you know, just feeling like, oh, okay, I'm part of this. I'm not just like this one person that's just on this team, and the CEO doesn't even know my name anymore.
and I think go ahead. Shira.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, Dave.
From where I'm sitting with along with Shira, with you know what, like you mentioned, in the town hall there could be something going on, but we also don't know from those town halls. People hear it or part of it as the audience might say something out the outside, right? Even though it's not firsthand, it's observation from somebody else, whether it's an outsider, insider. Um, where have you seen where there's a big gap from what they're practicing inside versus culturally and what's exposed out there? Because those are two big things. So that's a big cost for them that they need to start honing in on. So what's a good example that you've seen in that space?
Yeah, I mean, I almost see it all the time, whether I'm inside an organization or, you know, as a fractional, or just seeing it blowing up on LinkedIn, is, you know, you all of a sudden see a lot of roles being posted, right? Because a company may have acquired some clients, some customers, they now have a product. But meanwhile, you know, internally, there's still a lot of bottlenecks. There's still a lot of maybe duplication of effort. There's still maybe a lot of gaps because they have, you know, people's roles haven't clearly been identified. So there could be a lot of toe stepping, or there could be a lot of redundancy, and then a lot of things that aren't being done because no one is clear that that's what they should be doing. But meanwhile, you know, externally, it looks like, oh my gosh, they're really coming up, right? They have a new product, and they, this company just signed on with them, and they have 5 open roles. Like, this is really an organization, that maybe I want to be a part of. And then, if you're lucky enough to get an interview, you apply to one of those roles, and then you start going through the interview process. And because, again, there's no real good recruiting playbook that has been created, everyone is asking the same questions, right? So you're not really interviewing the candidate very well, but then the candidate is also hearing different messages and different ideas about what the company is and isn't. And also it's your employees that are going to be your best kind of advocates and word of mouth advertising, right? And so it's not just what are the employees saying, but also what are they not saying? What am I not hearing,
Right.
that I thought I was going to hear because of all the external good news that I'm reading.
Oh, that's interesting. I know you work with early stage companies, right? And startups and that kind of thing. But what's resonating for me when you're talking about this is I don't think it's any different on the size of the company, the length that the company exists, because there's constant change. There's leadership change. I just had a conversation a couple hours ago with someone who said she was the CHRO for 5 years with 5 CEOs in the 5 years. And every time there is that kind of dramatic change in an organization, it's a reset. It's an opportunity, but it's also a huge reset. Executives bring in their own teams, they bring in their own cultures, everything changes. And so I think that this holds very true for even at the smallest level. A new leader on one team can change the entire dynamic of the function. And again, this may not be in place, so that infrastructure that we think about, systems in place, et cetera, well, yeah, that might still exist, but what if that leader doesn't enforce the policies that the company is doing, doesn't tell their people, I had a manager once, I was working for an HR tech company. We drank our own champagne, as we like to say. And we had just rolled out, this is a long time ago, we just rolled out, the monthly check-ins or the whatever they were that in the software, right? And they were all excited because it was this new functionality, and we're going to have these check-ins. My boss didn't do them. He didn't want to be bothered, right? So here's the perfect example of the cobbler's children have no shoes, only in this case, the cobbler wouldn't even build the shoes for his kids, right? And so I think that whilst you're focusing on the early seed, the startups, all that, I think it's true no matter how big, no matter how old. And I would assert to some extent that this is why we see the demise of companies that don't pay attention. And I'll tell this example, and I'm not quite sure if it relates, but it's what comes to mind for me. As a New Yorker, taxi cabs were my life, right? If I wasn't on the train, if I wasn't on the bus, I'm taking a cab. And it was easy. Go outside, hail a cab, go. Uber came around. And the New York City Taxi Commission said they dug their heels in, and they're like, we're not going to let them, we're not fighting this. We're not going to take credit cards. We don't care about Uber. They're not going to make it. And I remember being in my apartment one day, and it was snowing outside, and it was disgusting. And I had to go somewhere, and I went, oh yeah, there's that Uber thing. And I went on and ordered it. And then I just had to go downstairs and wait in the lobby for the Uber to arrive. Unlike pre-Uber, when I would stand out hailing a cab, and I used to think, do I have pants on? Wait, is this hell? Like, is this my purgatory that I'm going to be in because the cabs are going by and they're not stopping for me? And, all of these things that made it so awful. And ultimately, the taxi cab, the image of New York as we know it was gone, right? For all intents and purposes. They tried to backpedal. They tried to come up with an app. They tried to do other things. But that leadership didn't listen to the signals, didn't pay attention to what was going on in the world. And something that was the greatest institution for 100 years theoretically disintegrated, right? And so I think that being a startup, being a small company, being a founder run, in the first 3-4 years, all of this is true. And think about this when someone's a new leader on a new team, a new CHRO in an organization. a new CEO steps in. I think all of this applies.
Absolutely. Every situation is a time and an opportunity for a reset, a reevaluation, a pause and reflection, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't even need to be an executive change, right?
No.
It could be a member on the team. Right now I'm working with a company where I've been looking to hire someone, and it's been about 5 months. And now the hiring manager just resigned, right? Because they've been carrying the load of this role that hasn't been filled. Well, they have been the bottleneck in getting applicants scheduled. And so, when we're ready to schedule them, they're already done because they found something else. And so, so I was talking to the VP of operations yesterday, and then they said, okay, we're gonna, what's going on with this? We're gonna now have the hiring manager's direct manager is going to be directing the search. And I said, whoa, like, let's hit reset, let's pause. Now we have another role that's opening on the team. Can we take a look at, first of all, why is that person leaving, right? Is it the workload? Is it because they didn't have the rec closed within a shorter period of time? Who is left on the team? What can they do? What is their performance like? And then where are the gaps? Where do we need people to do the work, as opposed to just getting a clone of who just left, right? And then you're not even like solving for the problem. You're creating potentially additional problems because you didn't look at why did the person leave to begin with, and then you're not looking at the team in terms of, hey, how do we make sure they're set up for success?
I think part of that, some of that too, is especially in startups and in really fast growing businesses, there's almost this notion of we don't have time to think about that. We just have to keep going, right? We don't have time to worry about that. We don't have time to worry about that person left. Let them go. Let's move on to the next thing. And I think that I get it. I understand it. And right, we need to kind of consider what's being established and what are the roots that are growing in that organization that are gonna take care of the company going forward. It's tough.
So, Anna, you mentioned something about lived experiences, and I think that's a big key. That's a big thing for Shira and I, is that we're seeing all these founders come on, and with AI, I'm going to bring AI here as a part of the conversation. It gives them empowerment, or what I call delusional state, almost, to a point when they think that it can answer all their questions. It will take them to the next logical step that it thinks that AI is thinking for them. But if you don't have the lived experience to ask AI to help you in that space, you're just really asking it to give you an answer, are two different things. And are you seeing that from founders or leaders that really know, have lived experiences, versus those that are trying to just claw their way in and thinking that AI is going to give me the next best step? I see that constantly, what people are trying to grow.
Did you say Claude or Claw?
Claw.
Okay, because I thought you meant Claude as in using AI, which I thought was a really good thing that would be like a good play on words. I'm clauding. We're going to Google, and now we're going to claude our way. I think
it is starting to become a thing.
I'm clauding. You can't ChatGPT it. That's too long. I'm clauding my way.
I'm GPTing it is the other word, the shortcut.
Yeah. Still, I don't like. I'm clauding.
Okay, so I guess we started something.
We do. We're gonna have to. That'll be on our merch. It's gonna be on our merch.
Yeah, I mean, with AI, I think because it's a lot of different startups and they're still small, like, that's when it comes to AI, that's not the issue. It's more of like it's more of the IP. It's more of like, how come everyone at this company has a different license, and it's not an enterprise license, and we don't have AI governance at this organization. And I get from the CEO, don't worry, everything's patented. And I'm like, but what you're working on currently is not patented yet. So guess what? You're just put it out there. I think, whether it's AI or whether it's, hey, we don't need HR, we don't need a certain function, right? Because we can get AI to spit out the answer. If you don't know, right? Like we've learned, if you're not prompting it correctly, the AI tool, it's not going to give you the right answer. Some of that could be coming from lived experience, but some of it could also be coming from context, right? Like if you don't have a good understanding of what the organization is looking to accomplish. And by simply just saying AI is going to take care of it, but you haven't really defined the end goal, you haven't defined what it is that you need, then what are you asking AI to do? It's just going to come back with the same thing that people are doing, right? Which is kind of butting heads and just, I always imagine kind of like a rubber room, and people are just like bumping into each other, and nothing's getting done. And so, that's the same thing. It's like, you can't just go from a blank, clean slate and hope that, I prompt it, fingers crossed, I prompt it properly. It's going to give me the playbook on how I should run my company, how I'm going to get customers, how I'm going to be able to raise funding, when you yourself don't know, right?
Yeah.
What specifically it is that you need. And so that's why you need to clarify it with the humans that you've hired.
I love this, the phrase, I don't know what I don't know, right? Which is, I think which is AI in a nutshell, right? Because it's going to just create stuff and you're like, what was this? I don't know. Heather's giving us great stuff, and I missed it before talking about the exit interview, but I love the line, Heather, better late than never. I think that's true about everything, right? Better to give it a shot at some point than never letting it happen at all. It really is incredible to watch organizations. I think some of it's the fear of structure, right? I've heard founders say, oh my gosh, it was because we were so entrepreneurial and we had so much free thinking and we were so creative that if we put structure in that, it will ruin this company, right? One doesn't negate the other, right? And I think that we know that children, because we're all children, need structure, right? We need to know, to your image of the bouncy room, we need to know that there isn't a window that's going to, if we bounce too hard, it's going to propel us out down, 40 floors to our death, right? There has to be those guardrails and that ability. I think creativity flourishes so much more when the guardrails are there to protect us than just saying it's a free-for-all and go for it. And I think AI is a perfect example of that. The more I give it information to give me what I need, and I'm going to use this as the perfect example. When I started my business, I was not in a great place. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. And somebody gave me an idea, and I said, okay, what do I love to do? And so I created this idea of a business around what I love to do. And so I went to ChatGPT. Daisy's heard me say this, and I was new to ChatGPT, and I said, here's my idea for my business. I want you to tell me, is this a good idea? And who else is doing this? Who's my competition? And ChatGPT, and I was paying for it. I wasn't on the free plan, but I was paying the $20 a month. And ChatGPT came back and said, oh my God, this is the greatest idea ever. You found the golden ticket. Nobody's doing what you're doing. It's brilliant. And I went off. I went running. I built a website. I started creating ideas. It was a stupid idea. Nobody was doing it because it was a stupid idea and nobody wanted what I was offering. And it took me a while to figure that out because, of course, ChatGPT is going to tell me it's a great idea because nobody's doing it because it's a stupid idea. So I think that if I had known better, if I knew the guardrails, then I don't know that I would have wasted all that time and money. I don't know, maybe, I don't know. But yeah.
Yeah, and I've heard that, ChatGPT tends to be very complimentary,
Yeah.
right? They're like your biggest cheerleader.
Right.
So it's like really important to put in the, hey, I want something challenging, don't just agree with me. But that too comes from experience, right? Because
Yeah.
you just laid it right out. Um, but the guardrail provides the path to the goal, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, you're not stifling creativity. But it is going to get a little chaotic because people are going to be thinking about all sorts of different things, right? You got to really narrow and come up with a goal. And then you can say, hey, within these guardrails or boundary,
Right.
where should we go? But then you're wasting time, right? You're wasting resources if you just do like a free for all, and people come back with things that are not even near where you want to be going.
Right. I think, Daisy, I'm going to tee you up because I think maybe our outside story speaks to this a little
Yes,
bit.
absolutely. I think it's a perfect time to do it. All
You
right.
want to do that?
Yeah,
Okay.
we'll do that. All right. So every week we bring in a story from the outside of this room because the glass house is not only about your experience, it is about what is happening out there with to the people watching. The people watching this week, we found a company that had every single visible marker of infrastructure and almost none of the real thing. So in May 2025, a company valued at roughly $1.5 billion collapsed in a matter of weeks. Builder.ai had raised around $450 million. Microsoft was a partner and an investor.
Wow.
SoftBank and Qatar Sovereign Wealth Fund were on the cap table. The founder gave himself the title chief wizard. Okay, from the outside, infrastructure looked complete: funding, partners, a board, a brand, a valuation. Here is what was missing: the company ran without a chief financial officer. Through a critical stretch of the fastest growth, its auditors had ties to the founder. There was no independent check with the standing of to ask a harder question. And while those basic guardrails went unbuilt, the company was busy building its own internal chat apps, project trackers, and dashboards, duplicating tools and already existed. I think this happens to a lot of founders too. Then it ended on the evening of May 20th. Hundreds of employees joined a remote town hall and around the world and learned the company had run out of money and was filing for bankruptcy. One former product manager was on a client call when he found out his job was gone. In his words, everyone lost their jobs within 30 minutes.
Wow.
The sting. Here is what stings about this. They built everything except the structure that would have caught it. The people
Yeah.
who needed the structure was found out last.
That is crazy. And here's what needs naming, right? It's easy to make this a story about one founder behaving badly. It's really not, right? Because every marker that signals a company is real was embedded. As you said, funding, partners, valuation, titles on a slide, every structure that would have caught the problem, an independent financial check, a board asking the uncomfortable question, information living somewhere other than in one person's head was never embodied. And that's really the key. And notice where the energy went, not into the guardrails, into more tools, into chat apps, project trackers, dashboards, infrastructure that can be seen and demonstrated and screenshotted, while the infrastructure that decides whether a company holds went completely unbuilt. Right? Scale did not create that gap. Scale completely revealed it. And that gap was there from the beginning. And growth simply removed the room to hide it. That is the pattern that we keep talking about, right? This is where we see how when this happens, everyone's so shocked, but it's so easy to look back and go, oh yeah, that's obvious. We see how that worked. What do you think, Anna?
Sorry, I was on mute. I think, as you were both speaking, I was thinking about just the term due diligence.
Right.
Oftentimes, and I think unfortunately for everyone's just an unfortunate situation is when you think about due diligence, it's always about like fundraising and financial. So in this case, yes, like, hello, where's your CFO? But I think, whether you're growing, whether you're trying to get, additional fundraising, whether you're looking at an exit strategy, you're going to be looked at inside and out, right? So everything all your, T's need to be crossed and your I's need to be dotted, because it's not simply just, oh, we have this great product, or, we have this great system, but it's wonky, right? Like maybe you were lucky, right? Maybe the timing was right, but is it repeatable? Are you going to be able to deliver other additional things? So, if someone's looking to acquire a company and there's absolutely no infrastructure, some might think, oh, that's great, because, one of the biggest headaches of mergers and acquisitions is combining systems and people and processes. But if there's no foundation, right, then you just bought something that might not have legs to stand on.
Right. Well, this is a great example. I don't remember that company at all. I'm gonna have to do a little more checking into it as well, because I remember the story. I remember that the whole blow up, and we see this all the time, right? I mean, I think you said it too. People don't want to ask the difficult questions. And who's going to walk into a room in front of a founder with that kind of background, right? Microsoft is investing, Qatar Wealth Fund is investing. Who's going to assume that there isn't a CFO in place? And it's not like there was nobody doing finance, right? It's not like nobody was looking at that. But yeah, it's so interesting. I find it fascinating, the mindset of an organization and how they want to run. It's also risk aversion, right? How risk adverse does somebody want to be? And many, many, many times, not always, but many times, and I'm a Shark Tank fanatic, right? So this is what comes to mind for me immediately. The founder, the creator, isn't necessarily the one who needs to be running the company. Right? They always say, I love you. You're an amazing entrepreneur. You're an amazing founder. You have no business running this company. Right. And that's, obviously it's television and they want to be dramatic, whatever, but I would say that's not a fault of the person. That's just not their skill set. I had a manager who I adored, and he came to me one day and he said, we had somebody joining our team, and from another team that was kind of being dissolved. And he said, he pulled me aside. He probably phoned me or something. I don't know what, but he got a hold of me and he said, because we were all remote, and he said, you need to meet this woman. You need to get to know her. She's joining your team. He said, she is the yin to your yang. She is everything you're not. He said, the two of you together will conquer the world. And I was like, yeah. And then we met and we got a chance to work together. And Daisy's going to laugh because she'll get this. We would get on a call and we'd talk about a deal we were working on, and I would have all these ideas, and I said, let's go do this, and then we're going to travel here, and we're going to go, oh, and what hotel do you want to stay in? And I would have this, and she was fairly quiet, probably because I didn't give her much room to talk. And then we would hang up the phone, and like 20 minutes later, she'd send me a spreadsheet of everything that we needed to do, and a task. And I said, oh my God, who are you? I am in love with you. You are my everything. And he saw that me way up here and her grounded was the perfect synergy. And we had huge successes together, right? And we're polar opposites. And so, yeah, I think that it's not always the person that's in the right place or doing the right thing. And it just needs to be witnessed. I mean,
and it's happening a lot right now too, Shreya, like with founders, right? They go, I can do this, or I'll just take a course from this. I'm not going to hire a marketing person, right? Let me take like a 2-day boot camp about marketing or AE or whatever it is that they want to take. Like, let me take it. I'll be my own CMO. I'll be my own CFO, all those type of stuff.
My own HR leader.
Exactly, right? And so similar to, that's why when we teach AI, it's like, make sure you have your guardrails, make sure you have your governance around your own processes, make sure you have your own employees, meaning your AI employees have a particular task that helps with the guardrails. And so it's just like the real world in a more virtual setting. So to your point is that you cannot always wear the same, you might be able to wear same hats, but not fully knowledgeable about it. You know a little bit about it, but you think you can AI something about it, and then you are that whole department. It's not. And I see it with, I have a couple clients that are like, oh, I'm taking this course, so I don't have to do that. I'm taking this course, so I don't have to pay another employee to do that. And then so when you do that, are you automating it also, or is it just living in your brain? And so now all of a sudden you're disorganized, right? Like which is priority, which one is not. And so that also comes from being a leader and knowing when to give up certain things, when you actually need help versus just trying to own it. Anyway, how much do you see of that, Anna?
Yeah, I mean, I work with a lot of companies where there is no C-suite, right? It's typically the CEO. They, became the CEO, whether, it's either they were subject matter expert or they're a real good business person, right? But it's very rare that you come across someone who has everything, right? Checks all the boxes. What I also see is a lot of kind of, whether it's misconception or miseducation, that I need to hire a full-time person. I need to hire a full-time marketing person. I need to hire a full-time financial person, and I can't afford it. There's this new word that has come into our vocabulary, which is fractional, right? You hire a portion of someone for very specific project-related work, and they become embedded into your organization, right? So they're not a consultant because now they're really representing that function. But you don't need a full-time headcount. You don't need them for maybe the entire year. Maybe you just need them for 6 months. And so kind of opening eyes for CEOs and founders that there are folks out there who are doing this work, and they're actually even better positioned because in a given year or even a 6-month period, right, they're seeing the same thing over and over again, and they're just they're constantly learning, and they're able to then apply, whether it's a best practice, whether it's an innovation, whether, it's something new in the space, as opposed to bringing in someone full-time who just spent maybe 10 years at their last company and they were just doing, maybe 1 or 2 things within that function. So it's really important to surround yourself, right, with the subject matter expertise, but they can come in all shapes and sizes. They don't have to be additional full-time headcount to your org chart.
I think that's so smart. And I think that the older mentality, the traditional mentality of we have an office and people need to sit in those chairs every day and they need to be there for 8 hours a day and et cetera, is really hurting a lot of businesses, because there are really phenomenal people out there who can do fractional work, who want to do fractional work, who actually, I think, bring even more to the table. And to your point, everything you just said, and this notion of whether it's a startup or a small company or even a big company, one environment doesn't negate the other. And I've done the fractional work. I know how it works. I love it. And I bring with me then so much experience from so many different areas. And I would hope that after COVID and everything we've been through, and I know there's been this whole backlash of, return to office and all this kind of stuff, but I would hope that people would realize that there are really creative ways of bringing incredible talent into an organization that they couldn't get otherwise, and that the people can do things that are really phenomenal in a different type of way. I mean, that's a whole other conversation that we're not going to get into today, but yeah, I think it's really important. I can't believe we are almost at the end of the hour and we have so much more to talk about. So I want to do a couple of really quick things and then we're going to let Anna go. Thank you. First of all, we love every week to give some action items, right? Things like takeaways that people can use in their day-to-day. And I'm going to kick mine off. I started by saying my whole idea around, fire and death. So I'd love for everyone to just take 10 minutes and think and write down your own death and fire list, right? What are the things that if you're leading a team, you're leading an organization, or even just for yourself, where you need to maybe go to your manager or your leader to say, oops, this is a death or fire situation. What's really on that list? What decisions are you not able to make, or that others are not able to make inside your teams, that you want them to be able to do, or think about the things that you can't fix after the fact. And that's also going to unveil, I think, what's even more important is what guardrails exist within your organization. Because if it's not death or fire, if it's a lot of things that are exposed that could be really bad, then that's something to look at as well. So make that list, take a look at it, and then work with your team and say, hey, what can we do to make this better, to make people more creative, more entrepreneurial, more able to be free and to do the things that they need to do to be productive. That's mine for this week.
So mine will be open an assistant or check in Google, basically, and your assistant, ask them about what it's like to work for that company, or where your company is, or another company, whoever you want to research. And then go into Google and open up that website and look at the careers page. Read it again. See what it says, right, versus what you research. The distance between those two answers is what the candidate reads before any conversation happens on both sides. So that's another way of researching, aside from looking at LinkedIn, what they're about, or just looking at the what's about the company. Typically, when we prepare, we look at what's all about the company, right? All that stuff. What are their services? What are their mission statements? Whatever it is that you're memorizing, look at the careers page. What are they saying there? Is there a review page? And research on yourself and see if it aligns. If there's a gap there, then there's something you need to ask the questions during that conversation.
And I don't want to put you on the spot, but do you have one for us?
I sure do. I think for founders, a quick 30-minute exercise could be, picking one role within your organization that's really pivotal to the organization, but maybe it feels a little messy, it feels overloaded, it has evolved over time. Folks don't recognize that, especially in the startup space, right? What they were hired into 6 months earlier, 1 year earlier, that role has evolved over and over again, right? And so what they were initially hired for is maybe no longer makes sense, and the role has evolved. And then it's like, is the right person in that role? But then, think about like 5 things, like what does the role own? And what decisions does this person make? What does success look like? What currently lives with that person, right? And what lives in the founder's head? Could this person take it on? Is now this person becoming kind of like the founder's head because they're the next in line? And then, what should be escalated versus handled independently, right? So here too, if this person is constantly coming to the founder, asking questions, asking for clarifying, or, can I make this decision? How can you make this a better role so the person feels empowered to make those decisions and be clearer on the direction of the organization?
I love that. Well, let's make sure everybody knows how to reach you, because we want to make sure that they can. This is, oops, it just disappeared. This is this is your LinkedIn profile. So I'm assuming that you are okay if people reach out to you directly. You can scan the QR code and find you on LinkedIn and talk to you about what their struggles are around their structure and their infrastructure and everything that they're doing. And I'm going to give you an opportunity just to say a little bit more about what you do and why they need to contact you.
Sure. So I am a fractional HR consultant. So I have been in-house at global organizations. I've been in academia. I've been in startups. So I kind of have seen all of the industries, all of the verticals. And so what I do is I work with founders, executive directors of nonprofits, really anyone who is finding that there is a little bit, they're scrappy and it's a little bit chaotic, to build that right sized infrastructure to then provide that clarity and empowerment for folks to do their work. And then have those frequent kind of check-in points, whether it's the manager doing it, whether it's the CEO, whether it's HR, to kind of gauge the barometer for everyone, right? So that it's not actually just sitting on HR shoulders, especially if there's no HR department.
Right. Amazing. Thank you so much for being here. We want to give an opportunity if anybody wants to reach out to me or to Daisy directly on all of our socials. I'm going to ask again, I'm going to beg, I'm going to be obnoxious, but go to us, find us on Apple Podcasts, and rate and review. We're just trying to get that message out there as much as we can. And it's fun to be able to say that all the time. And Daisy, I will turn it over to you.
And so like Shira said, these are all the areas where you can reach us. We're pretty much in all social media, LinkedIn, YouTube, and our websites. We also have the Glass Health cohorts. We are going to revive that again in the next couple of months or so. But a reminder is our season finale, just for the season, is next week. And Shira and I are going to have fun. We're just going to have fun with a lot of topics that we always are seeing that we just want to run with it. So please join us next week for our wrap up. But other than that, thank you so much for joining us, and please keep watching.
Yeah, we're so excited about it. It's hard to believe when we started this that we would have been saying the end of season 1. But we're going to come back, and we're so appreciative of everyone who's been so supportive. And I say this all the time. I mean, if this is something that resonates with you and you want to be a guest, we would love to have you. We are going to take a little bit of time off in August. I think we need a break. I think you need a break from us. But we are excited about coming back and tackling more of this. I think that, we spend most of our time at work, and for those of us who work remotely or work from home or are creating businesses or working with multiple companies, it can be overwhelming. And we want to have some fun in these conversations, but we also want to make sure people know that nobody's alone, right? We're all going through a lot of the same stuff. And I have a lot of the same conversations over and over again. So we wanted to bring this forward and have everybody a chance to talk about what they bring to the table, how they can help other companies like Anna can help. And I want to thank you again for doing this. And we will see you next week for our last episode. Thank you so much. Have a great week, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Bye.